on to cycle 4. We're going to open up our books to page 191 and start reading there. We're actually going to start at the bottom of page 190 where we left off. She said, "Our schedule's pretty heavy for the next couple of months, and then come September we'll have to see about school for you. But we'll be doing a lot of traveling right around Michigan, so I hope you don't mind long car trips." "No, ma'am." She said, "That's great, Bud. Something tells me you were a godsend to us. Keep that in mind all the time, okay?" "Yes, ma'am." Then she did something that made me feel strange. She stood up, grabbed both my arms, and looked right hard in my face, just like Mama used to do. She said, "Really, Bud, I want you to always keep that in mind. This might get hard for you some of the time, and I don't always travel with the band, so I don't want you to forget what I'm telling you." I said, "No, ma'am, I won't." Steady Eddie said, "Since you're going to be part of the family, there are some things we got to talk about. Now I've noticed the tight grip you keep on that old suitcase of yours, and I need to know how attached to it you are. I carry it with me everywhere I go, 'cause all my things are in there." I wasn't sure if I liked the way this talk was going. Steady Eddie said, "That's what I need to know. Are you attached to the suitcase, or is it the things inside that are important?" I'd never thought about that before. I'd always thought of the suitcase and the things inside together. I said, "The things I got from my mother are the most important." He said, "Good, because if you're going to be traveling with us, it wouldn't look too copacetic for you to be carrying that ratty old bag." I reached under the kitchen table and pulled out one of those funny-looking suitcases, and the band, he reached, we're just going to restart that paragraph. He reached under the kitchen table and pulled out one of those funny-looking suitcases that the band kept all their instruments in. This one looked like a baby one to his. He put it on the table, opened it, and said, "Since you're going to be traveling with Herman E. Calloway and the Worthy Swarthies, which is known far and wide as a very classy band, it's only fitting that you quit carrying your things in that cardboard suitcase. This is my old alto saxophone case. I've been hanging on to it for 3 years now, ever since the horn got stole right off the stage in Saginaw, but it doesn't look like I'm ever going to get it back, so I figured you might as well keep your mama's things in it." "Wow! Thank you, Steady Eddie." I pulled my new case over to me. The inside of it had a great big dent where Steady Eddie's saxophone used to go. Now there wasn't anything in it but a little raggedy pink towel. The case had some soft, smooth black stuff all over the inside of it. It covered everything, even the dent. There was a real old smell that came out of it too, like dried up slobber and something dead. It smelled great. We're going to pause right there and try to answer this first question. It says, what decision does Bud make about his suitcase? Are you surprised by this? Why or why not? The decision it's referring to is about giving up his cardboard suitcase and switching it out for this new case that Steady Eddie gave him. Knowing how attached Bud is to his suitcase, are you surprised that he traded it out so quickly? If not, tell me why. And we are going to keep reading. Pause the video so you can answer this question. When you're ready, come back. All right, we are right here, scholars, at the back kitchen door opened. The back kitchen door opened, and I thought Herman E. Calloway was coming back in to ruin everybody's fun, but it was the rest of the band. Everybody said hello, poured themselves some coffee, then sat down at the table. Doodoo said, "I see Mr. C's got Lou Dean's carburetor tore down again. Anything wrong?" Miss Thomas said, "There's lots wrong, but not with that car." They all laughed, so I joined in too. I patted my new case and said, This here's my case now. I'm gonna be going around with you." They smiled, and Dirty Deed said, "So we hear. Glad to have you on board, partner." Steady Eddie said, "I was just about to tell him some of the things Herman E. Calloway requires of anybody in his band." The Thug said, "Otherwise known as Herman E. Calloway's rules to guarantee you have no female companionship, no alcohol, and no fun at all." Pause. Make a note of that. In your notebook, Herman E. Calloway also has a set of rules. They're a different set of rules than the one that Bud keeps, but there's still a set of rules that Herman E. Calloway lives by and that he holds his band members to. Pause the video and make a note of that here. We're going to continue. Rule number 1, practice 2 hours a day. Mr. Jimmy said, "That's a good one." Steady Eddie said, "So I got you this, bud." Steady Eddie had another present for me. This was a long, brown, skinny wooden flute. I was going to have to learn to play music. He said, "It's called a recorder. Once you've developed a little wind and some tone and some embouchure, we'll move on to something a little more complicated." Alright, so embouchure is a really big word, so we put it in here. The word embouchure refers to the position and the use of the lips, tongue, and teeth when playing a wind instrument. Proper embouchure allows musicians to play their instrument at its full range with a full, clear tone and without strain or damage to the muscles. So it's just how they use their mouth when they play their instrument, which is something that Bud needs to learn if he's going to play this recorder really well. We're going to start right at these must have. These must have been more of those Grand Rapids words, 'cause they sure weren't like any American talk I ever heard before. Real quick, it's not just Grand Rapids words, these are musical words, words that the musicians know. So if you want to make a note of that as well. I said, "Thank you." Steady Eddie said, "Don't thank me until you've been through a couple hours of blowing scales. We'll see if you're still grateful then." Blowing scales means when you play your notes, it goes like do 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 do, and you go in order with your notes. Some people find them pretty boring, which is why I think Steady Eddie is saying that. The thug said, "Now all that's left is to give little stuff here a name." Miss Thomas said, "You know, I don't like the way Ludine's been sounding. I think I'm gonna go check the air in the trunk." She picked her coffee up and started to leave the kitchen. Doodoo said, "You don't have to leave, Miss Thomas." "Darling, I know that. It's just that this is one of those man things that all you think is so mysterious and special that I have absolutely no interest in. The only thing I can hope is that the process has improved since you four were given your names." Then she left the room. As soon as she was gone, Steady Eddie told me, "Hand me your axe and stand up, Bud." I was starting to catch on to this Grand Rapids talk. I remembered that an axe was an instrument. I handed Steady my recorder and stood up in front of him. He said, she was right. This is mysterious and special, so that grin's got to go, brother." I tried to tie down my smile. Steady said, "Mr. Jimmy, you're the senior musician here. Would you proceed?" Mr. Jimmy said, "Gentlemen, the floor is open for names for the newest member of the band, Bud Not Buddy." They started acting like they were in school. The thug raised his hand and Mr. Jimmy pointed at him. Thug said, "Mr. Chairman, in light of the boys' performance last night at the Sweet Pea, I nominate the name Waterworks Willie." "Shucks, I was hoping they'd forgot about that." Mr. Jimmy said, "You're out of order, Douglas." Steady raised his hand. "Mr. Chairman, this boy obviously gonna be a musician. He slept until 12:30 today, so I propose that we call him Sleepy." Mr. Jimmy said, "The name Sleepy is before the board. Any comments?" Dirty Deed said, "Too simple. I think we need something that lets folks know about how slim the boy is." Doodoo said, "How about bone? Or how about the bone?" Study said, "Not enough class. You need something so people will know right off that that boy's got class." Mr. Jimmy said, "How do you say bone in French?" "French always makes things sound a lot classier." The thug said, "That's easy. Bone in French is la bone." Doodoo said, "La bone? Nah. It don't have a ring to it." Steady Eddie said, "I got it. We'll compromise. How about Sleepy La Bone?" I couldn't tie the smile down anymore. That was about the best name I'd ever heard in my life. Mr. Jimmy said, "Let me try it out. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out on this cold November night. This night that will live in history. This night that for the first time on any stage anywhere, you have listened to the smooth saxophonical musings of that prodigy of the reed, Mr. Sleepy LeBone." The whole crowd broke out clapping. The thug said, What can I say but bang? Dirty Deed said, "You nailed him." Doodlebug said, "That is definitely smooth." Steady said, "My man!" Mr. Jimmy said, "Kneel down, young man." I got down on one knee. Mr. Jimmy tapped me on the head 3 times with my recorder and said, "Arise, and welcome to the band, Mr. Sleepy LeBone." I got off my knee and looked at my bandmates. Sleepy LeBone. Shucks! That was the kind of name that was enough to make you forget folks had ever called you Buddy, or even Clarence. That was the kind of name that was enough to make you practice 4 hours every day just so you could live up to it. That's quite the end of that chapter. So we're gonna answer these questions now. Thinking back to how he felt about his name at the beginning, he recalls that Mama told him, "Bud is your name, uh, and don't you ever let anyone call you anything outside of that neither." Because of this, Bud has always been adamant about being called Bud, not Buddy, or any other names. In this chapter, Bud gets his new name. How does he react? If you don't remember how he reacts, look at the end of that chapter. How happy is he right there? Why, though? Why is he so happy about it? I want you to include evidence from page 195 to 197. And this will be on the test as well. It's going to ask you how he reacts to his name and how he feels about it. You've got it. Next question. Several times in this chapter, Bud experiences something strange or mysterious. What do these moments have in common, and how do they make Bud feel? Why might he be feeling this way? As you go through this question, I want you to look back in the book at these spots and answer these 3 questions. What do these moments have in common? How do they make Bud feel? Why might he be feeling this way? Take it in little pieces and write your answer there. When you are done, move on to the summative writing.